Hello. That probably has to be one of the strangest things that you've ever looked at in one of my videos. It is a very sad looking, misshapen screwdriver that has not much of a point left to it, literally, and would no longer serve its purpose in the world. And I felt like I could really relate to this item for the reasons that I've just stated. I can really understand what it's like to be past your sort of purpose in the world. But it's not... Some of you are going to get what I'm saying here, and some of you are just going to think that I've really lost it and I'm just rambling on about any old thing now. But there is a point to this, even though there isn't a point to that. And it is. Well, I was outside the other day and I just found this pretty much outside the back door. I don't know where it had been. I don't know what it had been doing for the whole of its life. Obviously it had served its useful purpose quite a long time ago, and it had come to rest sort of near my back door. And I don't know how I hadn't noticed it before, or whether it just fell from the sky and landed there, I don't know. But I picked it up and the sun was shining on this particular day, and I don't know why I started to look at it. I just don't know, really. I can't say what was going through my mind, but whether this is ever going to show up on here, I don't know. But this poor, redundant little item that is, I don't know how old, because they don't really make things like this anymore out of wood. It was obviously, if it did belong to this house, it was something of my dad's that just ended up, for some reason, outside the door. Anyway, I started to look at it and the sun was shining on it, and oh camera, if only you would pick this up, I just started to notice how beautiful it was. Now this is the point where you're just going to think, okay, yeah, really, just switch this one off, I think. But bear with me if you can, because what I saw was the most extraordinary colours. I mean, this had probably started off black or grey, and over the years, I don't know, it's ended up, can you see, here, my netted finger there, I'm just going to hold it steady for a minute. Can you see there are the most exquisite shades of blue in this? And the light was shining on it, and it started to actually sort of sparkle, and all the colours that were hidden in this little tiny bit of wounded object started to come through to me, and I could see here, hold it steady, there's like a beautiful aubergine colour on top of a kind of teal and slatey blue and a teal colour. Really want this to focus. Oh, that you could see what I can see. It's not quite as vivid as... I had almost a transcendent moment with this thing. It was like a time out of time. Suddenly I was just like transported in to the details of this little thing and the colours, and how inspiring I found the colours. And I even found a kind of olive green type colour that I'm always searching for. The colours that I want to work with when I'm painting were just in this object. All of the kind of different sort of blues, they're not blues, they're just like, I don't know, can you see that? There's a marvellous contrast between this kind of aubergine colour and this turquoise colour. And then it contrasts again with, it's like an opposite, because the rust shade becomes like an opposite of the blue, and I'm thinking it's like a landscape. It's like this wonderful landscape that I'd like to paint. This kind of very, even if you just put these colours down on a canvas together, they would make something incredibly moody. No, they would conjure up something. They would conjure up some sort of But then do you really need to? Because they're all here, and the contrast of the wood and these beautiful shades of blue, and it all started to sparkle. It was like it literally just, sorry, I'm starting to wobble my hand a bit there. It's just like it came to life, and all this rust was like this, all these beautiful shades of I can't even describe them. They were all almost like colours that I couldn't describe, and you can see some of that green there. It's almost like it's become an iridescent. I hope you can see this, otherwise you are going to think that I am really talking absolute tosh and I'm wasting your time. And it has a little rusty bit on the top, and everything about it just cries out to have those colours captured somehow. There's like a russet it's just, you can just go into it and it becomes like a land in itself. It becomes a terrain. It becomes this most beautiful thing. And I thought, nobody else will see this ever, or they would just literally pick that up and throw it away. And yet it is a source of incredible inspiration, and it has become a thing of, it's almost like an art, it's almost like a sculpture in itself. It's become a thing of great beauty. Even its prong, as it were, it's lost the ability to do what it originally was designed to do, but it's become almost like something that's been shaped by time and tide and seasons and elements, and become something that is sculptural. It is, and it is, it's just full of, I wish I could explain this better. It's almost, it was a kind of a transcendent moment. I can still see those colours in it. I don't know whether you can, but those are the very things that inspire me, those types of colours. Very, very, very difficult to mix them or find the colours in paints or any sort of media that I've ever found, but those are the colours that I'm always looking for when I'm painting, and there they all are in this little thing, which I feel very enamoured of it. And it reminded me of some other things. I'm just gonna you're gonna think, yeah, I'm watching a video where I'm staring at this thing that I can't see any beauty in at all, so she'd better say something useful now. Yes, it reminded me of a time when I'd been gone through a period of illness, and I'd gone out, and I might have told you this before because it was so profound, a bit like when I just saw this. It was so profound. I went out, and it wasn't very far because I backed onto where I was living in Glastonbury. It backed onto where the supermarket was, and I had to walk down this little sort of alleyway to get there that had fencing on either side, and I just stopped in front of this piece of fence because I hadn't been out for goodness knows how long, and there was this piece of fence, and suddenly I was just completely drawn into the patterns and the shapes of the wood and the way the light caught them, and the way it was like this, like you could keep going into it. And unfortunately I was standing in a public place, and so standing there kind of, you know, I mean, it was Glastonbury, so you could probably get away with doing that more than you could anywhere else, but I did feel a bit awkward standing there for too long looking at this piece of wood. But it was the same kind of principle. It's happened to me so rarely in life where you just think, that is so beautiful, that is overlooked, nobody will ever see this. And through this gift of being able to make videos, I can kind of share that. I'm not saying that you're going to see what I can see in this, but maybe you'll start noticing things for yourselves that you come across that you would ordinarily have dismissed as being just everyday. And that's where the whole everyday enchantment thing came from years ago, is that magic in the mundane. And I'm not talking about, you know, magic like spells and things of that ilk. I'm just talking about wild magic, just absolute wonder of finding things that are like a universe, really, that you can just go into and discover. Anyway, what that then reminded me of was my book Wild Spirituality, which I don't think is very well known about, but I'm very proud of this book for many reasons. But I thought I'd read you a bit from it so that you're not just looking at this screwdriver, because it was the same sort of principle as this, as Well, I'll read it anyway. But in fact, I'll look at the book while I'm reading it, so you can look at it as well. In 2006, I spent many months housebound through acute illness. This was another time it was after the time with the wood. This was a different time. It's happened to me quite a lot. Anyway, I spent many months housebound through acute illness. During this time, I kept positive, thanks to my unseen contacts. Yet I missed the stimulation of new encounters in the outside world. I could see my little garden and its attendant starlings, but pined for wild nature, for windswept moors and waterfalls, and the wheedling cry of great brown buzzards overhead. When my enforced incarceration finally ended, I felt such elation, and it is as vivid now as it was then. I first took only a few faltering steps down my path and then turned back, but gradually I extended my range to take in the surrounding streets. How amazed I was at the world then, even tamed suburbia. How amazing I found, Everything was so intense. The greens were greener, the scents more evocative than I remembered. The purple passiflora in a neighbour's hedge delighted me with its strange beauty. I marvelled at a delicate yellow poppy still standing at the roadside in November. I know that was a horned poppy. What kinship I felt with that resilient little flower. I was overjoyed to greet somebody I didn't know and share small wonders of the day with them. Other people's idea of ordinary had become intensely special to me, and I was determined not to lose that sense of awe even when I saw the sweep of a hill or the rush of a river again. With patience I built up my range and was eventually able to book a train journey to take me farther afield. That first foray into the station filled me with astonishment at society's bustle. I felt thrilled by the purposeful activity and the new faces, and this excitement continued until I got on the train and found I was the only person in my carriage, and indeed most carriages, not to be plugged into something. And this got worse as the years went on, obviously. Phones, iPods, laptops, all these gadgets necessitated earphones or absorption into a screen. In my fresh and exuberant state, this shocked me. I was prepared for a collective adventure, and my travelling companions were doing their best to pretend it wasn't happening. They wanted to pass their time away being preoccupied by other realities, deliberately connecting to something only they could hear or see, and not directly connecting to the communal experience. It seemed that to them the journey was inconsequential and an inconvenience. It was as if this experience was not valid and that people were only killing time between more meaningful events. Despite this disappointment, I looked around expectantly as I walked through carriages on my way to the toilet, finding sitting down on trains extremely excruciatingly painful, so I did tend to move about a lot. But people did not look at me or each other unless they were part of a couple or family, and even people travelling together had their own distracting devices with them, locking into them more engrossing worlds of entertainment or work. It seemed that there was no conversation unless it was on a phone to an invisible person, an invisible other. Perhaps they found the now dull and would rather replace it with a false construct than address their ennui. Time may not exist except as a human concept, but actively killing it seemed unwise. It could reinforce an attitude of ingratitude and indifference and even a dangerous disassociation. Unable to connect with my fellow passengers, I refused to zone out myself. Instead, I decided to focus on what I saw outside the train window. Here are a few of the beautiful moments that the plugged-in people around me missed. A woman in an orange sari walking down a grubby side street. She looked like a dancing flame in the gloom, and she was destined to become the cover of the Everyday Enchantment tarot. Vibrant graffiti art sprayed on the railway sidings. One colourful piece read, "Hello to people on the train." An elderly lady filling a wild bird feeder in the yard of a Victorian terraced house. A sea of golden bracken, a shade I'd never seen that plant turn before, enlivening the monotony of the embankments. Now I've got to try and turn the page over. The well-established track of a small but determined mammal running up an almost vertical escarpment. 3 ragged children standing in the doorway of a caravan, looking wistfully out across the waste ground upon which it stood. A solitary white-clad walker disappearing across a ploughed field where a flock of birds rose and turned as a single entity. I was so glad I'd seen those fleeting vignettes, but sad that nobody else seemed to have shared them. They represented the perfect moments of pleasure human life is composed of. I wanted to shout out, "Wake up, you're missing the point of physicality. There'll never be another now like this one." But of course I didn't. Instead I fell back into my own pondering. Well, I think I might have read that again in another video at some point, but I think it's worth going back to because of this little fella here. It's just a reminder that I feel compelled to sort of reiterate, I think, because this could quite easily have been just tossed away or dismissed or not seen. And I think that we can feel, as people, we can feel pretty much like that, especially as we get older. We can tend to become quite invisible, and I think that's why I've concentrated so hard in my artwork on making older people visible in my work. And now I am older, I know that is the case. You get past a certain age and you do feel a lot more invisible to people, especially if you're on your own. Anyway, what is the point of all this? It's just, I suppose it's paying attention, isn't it? It's paying attention because of what you might miss. And it moved. Obviously, I am very sad. Since I wrote this book, I don't want to keep going on about this, but I have to because this is my life, you see. Since I wrote this book, when I wrote that book, I had 2 parents, a partner, 2 best friends, and I lived somewhere that I wanted to live. And since that, all of those things have gone. Who would have thought that would have happened? And yet, still in me is that same impetus, that same ability to look at something that would be classed as ugly, not useful, just redundant, past its point, and to find something. Sorry, just stay there for me a minute, would you? To find something in it that was so inspiring, and I know that is probably not going to resonate with a lot of you, and you're not going to see the colours that I can see, and you're going to see just a dull, old thing that, if you would remember Bagpuss, marvellous Bagpuss, back in the lovely 1970s, when Emily would bring Bagpuss a redundant item and he would make up a story about it and then he'd go back to sleep. If you remember the Bagpuss, if you live somewhere outside of the UK and you've never heard of Bagpuss, then you'll think I'm just wittering on again. But it reminded me of the sort of object that Emily would bring to Bagpuss, and he would think, and this used to be something belonging to a king or something of that ilk. And obviously this was a thing that probably belonged to my dad and served a useful purpose, but somehow turned up for me where it wasn't before. I'm not saying it literally just materialised. Maybe it did because I needed to learn something. Because I'm looking for signs, I'm looking for guidance, I'm looking for things about, the fact that Gary has passed away, blah blah blah. I'm looking for kind of unseen guidance, and yet this turned up instead, and it's given me something else, and that's why I thought I would share it with you. And I can't believe I've just spoken for so long about it, because I just thought this was going to be one of those quick things. I hope there's been something in what I've said that will be of some relevance to you. Sometimes I sat there, I didn't sit there, I kind of crouched there because I can't sit. I kind of looked at it for a while outside, and I just thought, yeah, maybe this is my part of my job here. My purpose is to point out the things that other people don't notice. I don't know. Anyway, all I can say is this is a thing of beauty to me, and that's not because I've lost my mind. Sometimes I wish I would lose it, because then I could escape from all the heartache and things that are going on for me. But I haven't lost my mind. I think I'm quite together, and I think what I have found from this is something meaningful. If you don't think it's something meaningful, then I don't blame you, because you're not looking at it like I am. But maybe you'll find something of your own. And I'm not saying deliberately go out and look at things and try and find them, because they kind of come to you. I think you have to be open to going into them, like when you're a child. Because I found this in exactly the same place as outside the back door, where I used to, as a child, just spend literally hours engrossed in looking at leaves and stones and ants, and just going into this tiny world. And I feel like if you can go back into that kind of childish, not childish, but innocent, need to explore, need to look deeper. And it doesn't have to be by travelling afar or going anywhere. You can find it in front of you, literally. And I hope there was something in that for you, and it wasn't just, obviously you'd prefer to see some new work or me talking about something more dynamic, but sometimes, my work is about finding the magic in the mundane, and so it's gentle and it's quiet and it's meditative and it's slow, and maybe I'm able to do that and most people are too busy to do that. But I think just be ready for something to catch you unawares, even if you're just waiting in a queue or at a bus stop, or you think, no, this is just a waste of time. Well, maybe it isn't. Maybe there's something waiting to be looked at and noticed in a different way. Just maybe. Anyway, lots of love. Stay free. Big hugs. Bye.